It is 40 minutes after 10 p.m. Central African time. One day call coming in with that one titled So Me So. Time for the conversation that matters most. Now, reproductive health is at the heart of every woman's overall well-being. It affects her body, her future, and her place in society. When women have the knowledge and the resources to make informed choices, families thrive, communities grow stronger, and the cycle of poverty and preventable illness can be broken. It's not just a medical matter, it's a matter of equality, empowerment, and progress. Now, joining us to unpack this vital topic is Refilwe Tladiyatsana, who is a registered nurse and founder of Refi-Restore Primary Healthcare Services, a private clinic in Pretoria North, offering advanced wound care, family planning, wellness programs, a baby clinic, and more. Now, with her wealth on the front line, and of course this from her experiences, she's here to shed light on what reproductive health truly means and why it matters for every woman at every stage of her life. Refilwe, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
And thank you, Sheila.
Let's just I'm so glad you are happy to be here, because there's quite a bit to discuss. Okay, there was a clip that we started with where this young woman is speaking about the alleged existence of gonorrhea part 2. I mean, she phrased it in very many ways, and she was saying that there is if you will, a deviant from the actual virus that is affecting very many. And for those who are practicing unsafe sex or unprotected sex, they should sort of heed to this warning. Walk us through that find, please.
Yeah, Sheila, there's a high prevalence these days of STIs, and people are taking them very, very lightly. And the sad thing is that with STIs, especially gonorrhea and all the other STIs, if they are not treated on time, they can actually lead to infertility later on, especially in young people that are still looking forward to starting families. So there is treatment for STIs, and if detected early, they can actually get treated.
So just to bring clarity, that particular strand of gonorrhea can be dealt with if dealt with early, right?
Yes.
Let's get into the subject matter at hand, reproductive health. I was saying to a colleague of mine who hosts the show before this one that it almost feels like we take reproductive health as though it were a suggestion. It's like it's a nice to have. But the reality is that it's not. Perhaps let's stress the importance and highlight what is reproductive health.
Okay, Sheila, reproductive health is a very broad word, and I'm going to start to try to explain it in bite sizes so that people can understand what it is. So it basically has to do with, it covers all the aspects of mental, physical, and social well-being that are related to sexual reproductive health. And when a person has all these things working together, they are in a position to enjoy a safe sex life. They have the ability to reproduce. They can even decide how many times they want to reproduce. They are free to express themselves openly. So basically, sexual reproductive health has to do with a lot of factors, mentally, physically, and socially as well. Yeah. And then it touches aspects such as contraceptives. It touches aspects such as information on treatment of STIs, how one can contract STIs and how they can be treated. It looks into pregnancy. It looks into childbirth. It looks at sexually transmitted infection. So basically, it's very, very broad. And, when looking at it in a sense of males and females, in cases of males, sexual reproduction can actually start at the stage of puberty, and then it starts through to menstruation, then pregnancy, then menopause. And each of these stages have hormonal changes and physiological changes that are taking place that needs to be taken into consideration when dealing with a patient that comes with this. And in cases of men don't really experience menopause. Mostly with men, it's puberty, and then there is that stage where there's maturity of their sexual development, like their sperms, they can actually reach that point where they are able to reproduce. But then, unlike women who undergoes menopause, men don't. But instead, they may experience a decline in their reproductive capacity. So, in a nutshell, that is what sexual reproductive health is all about. Yeah.
Refilwe, you said mental health, and I was like, wait. This is an aspect of reproductive health that we sort of haven't touched on, right? Let's look at that facet. What, how, where, what's going on?
Okay, mental health also has to do with a lot of things. Like if a person, like for example, let's give an example of like sexual reproductive health, also look into things like abortion. So if a person did not get proper counseling, proper information, they end up going to things like backstreet abortions, which ends up affecting them mentally because you're feeling guilty, you're feeling bad, you're feeling like you did something really, really socially taboo. But when you like that's basically the mental health part. When you start feeling guilty, blaming yourself. Sheila, I've worked a lot in, like I was working at Vescopis at some stage, and you meet people that are regretting things that they've done in the past. So it affected their mental health in a sense that they regret, they blame themselves, they did things that they wish they couldn't have done. But these days, we have an opportunity where we can counsel people, give them information, proper information that has been scientifically proven on how to do certain things and what to avoid. So sexual reproductive health affects also the mental health of a person, not only the physical, that, okay, there was an abortion done, or you got an STI, or you are pregnant, but also how are you feeling emotionally? Do you feel that your needs are taken seriously? Do you feel like your concerns are addressed? And things like that. Yeah. So that's mental health.
Interestingly enough, Refilwe, I want to gauge if our healthcare systems have taken account of that. We are talking about the prospects of one receiving counseling for perhaps an attempted abortion or pregnancy or an STI, STD. Do we have healthcare facilities? And I suppose let's use South Africa as a case study. Do we have healthcare facilities that frame the context in such a fashion? Are they also cognizant of that offering specifically for reproductive health?
Sheila, I've seen a lot of government clinics are really, really trying to address this, especially in terms of youth, where you find adolescent-friendly clinics, where the staff that is working in that clinic is trained to work with young people in such a manner that the young people feel open to discuss their challenges, their questions, instead of having to go to friends who give them unreliable information. So I think we do have that system. It's just a matter of informing the young people about such available services. I know, even for example, there's Soshanguve 3 clinic. There's a youth-friendly clinic where young people know that we are going particularly to this section. That's where we won't be judged. That's where we won't run into our parents. That's where we won't find someone who will be shouting and saying, "Hey, you are young. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?" But we will find an adult who is willing to listen and to hear. Sheila, these kids are very confused. So I felt that strategy of having a section that's particularly deal with the children let me not call them children, with the young people, is actually helping them to find answers to the questions that they have. So yeah, I feel there is such structure. We are really trying.
Sure. I hear you on that. Speaking about dealing with these young adults, at what age should girls begin doing their reproductive health checkups, and how often should these be done?
Okay, it's advisable to start as soon as a young girl menstruates or starts to be sexually active, because that's an opportunity for us to actually teach them about contraceptives, about STIs and how they can be prevented, about healthy relationships where they don't have to be coerced into having sex to prove to a boy that they love them, or to have a baby to prove that they love them. So as soon as a child starts menstruating, and also as soon as they start being sexually active, that is actually the time that allows us to start doing those annual checkups. And when you do that, you can actually get an opportunity to start to teach them all these things that I just mentioned here.
Refilwe, the reason I'm asking this is because there's also an internal debate in the homestead, right?
Mm,
No parent wants to see their child at age 13 pregnant.
yeah.
Yeah, that comes across as one of the most terrifying experiences that a parent could encounter, be it mother or father.
Mm,
And so, with that being said, how are we carrying the narrative so that we educate children that the practice of sex requires maturity? You know, it's not to
mm,
limit you from what you think is good, but this thing
mm,
requires maturity because there are consequences that come with this practice.
mm,
There is
mm,
somebody who might come from this practice. You know, you yourself are not yet ready to take care of yourself. What more you introducing another person onto this planet at such a tender age? How are we
mm.
facilitating that conversation?
It starts at home where parents need to create an environment where their children can actually say, "Mom, there's a guy I like." Instead of saying, "Hey, what I do?" Like, we need to be approachable in a sense that allows our children to be able to be free to say, "Mom, there's this guy I like." Then you can, in a way, it gives you an opportunity to start luring them in a direction that you want. Yes, a lot of parents don't want to know that their children could be having sex and all that, but it's up to us as parents also to educate our children to be there in every step of the way. That way we can actually give them advice on what to do to avoid certain things that we are afraid of, like pregnancy. And I've seen some parents even going to extremes of, okay, my child, you say you love this boy, let them come to visit us. And then you get to counsel both of them at the same time. You get to guide both of them, that kids, it doesn't mean that because you love each other you need to have sex. Okay, kids, should you have sex, there's things like this. There's a pregnancy. Are you ready to be parents? This is what you'll be forfeiting if you are pregnant. You might not be able to go to tertiary. This is what you could give up on. So you try to put them together as a couple and you give them information. So it starts at home. And I've seen a lot of parents are throwing it to the teachers, expecting the teachers to be the one to explain everything to their children. But if we could start being approachable to our kids, making time, Sheila, these days we see parents are so busy. They are always abdicating their responsibility as parents to nannies, to people that are always at home with the children, to the grandparents. Not the grandparents are still casual. They would say, hey, we want grandchildren. To them, this grandchildren thing is still exciting, but to us who are more enlightened, we know what this child is going to lose out on should they fall pregnant before time. So I still emphasize this. It's still up to us as parents. And if we feel like we cannot do it, rather we go to healthcare institutions where someone neutral like us nurses can actually go with these children through these topics. Yeah.
The voice there of the founder of Refi-Restore Primary Healthcare Services. That is Refilwe Tladiyatsana joining us this evening. If you want to send through your commentary, your conversation, perhaps even a thought that came to mind, a question that came to mind, find us on WhatsApp +27 6340 6940126. Refilwe, human papilloma virus, HPV. South African Health Department vaccines get girls to vaccinate as early as 10 years of age. Let's address HPV. And secondly, look at why it's done so early.
Okay, so human papilloma virus is a virus that causes cervical cancer. So in South Africa, young girls are given this human papilloma virus vaccine at an early age because studies have shown that when they get it at an early stage, before they can actually start engaging in sexual relationship, that's when it's more effective. So administering it earlier helps that before they can actually get sexually active. So hence the early age. And then also research has shown that when it's given at an early age, it gives the children more protection, like the immune system gets to develop and produce antibodies that will protect them later on in life against this. So hence, yeah, it's given so early before they are sexually active.
Let's talk about some of the common pre-existing undiagnosed reproductive health issues that we encounter between teens and young women, of course, following through to the elderly as well?
Oh, okay. We have noticed a surge in uterine fibroids. Like fibroids are becoming so common these days. And, with fibroids, it's when there is growth inside a uterus, a growth that just grows there. It's like a benign tumor that grows inside the uterus. And the effect of it is that it can affect fertility. With some women, it causes heavy menstrual periods that could be prolonged, severe pains. So uterine fibroids is one of those undiagnosed or usually pre-existing and unknown types of things that we can find in women. And usually the common treatment that we have seen to deal with it scientifically or medically, we've seen it done surgically. They are removed surgically, because if not dealt with, they can actually affect pregnancy, where a woman has to give birth via cesarean section instead of natural birth, based on how big these fibroids are or where they are located. So there is a lot of complications that come with them. They can even cause infertility in some women if not removed, or maybe delay fertility. If maybe, let me not be too harsh and say they can cause infertility, but they can delay or prevent fertility. So fibroids are one of the most pre-existing conditions. And then also endometriosis. With endometriosis, it's when what looks like the tissue that looks like the lining of the inside of the uterus is actually growing outside the uterus. So it's also recognized, just like fibroids, it's recognized also by pain. Like there is also severe pain that is associated with endometriosis, and it also can affect fertility. So how it's usually dealt with, it's like with hormonal treatment, which suppresses menstruation. That way, if menstruation is suppressed, then the growth of the endometriosis, like the growth of those tissues, starts to decline a bit. So those are some of the things that pre-existing conditions that women can have. And then STIs as well. You find a person having unusual vaginal discharges, smelly vaginal discharges, painful sexual intercourse, and abdominal pain being like you experience abdominal or pelvic pain. Those are some of the signs of STIs. But then STIs, depending on what they are, whether they are viral or bacterial, there is treatment of some of them. Unlike with HIV, there's just a way of controlling it, but we can't treat it and say it's fully eliminated. And the nice part about some STIs is that if you go on time to a healthcare facility, they can be treated. But if you stay longer without going to a healthcare facility, it can actually cause later on complications like infertility and all those kind of other unwanted complications. Yeah, so those are there are many, but these are the most prevalent ones. Yeah.
Refilwe, there was updates with respect to the HIV vaccine. Now, South Africa is actively involved in that, right? How far have they come? Are you able to give us an update on that?
No, at the moment, no, I can't until we find something written and something show and something. Yeah, at the moment, no.
That is
I
fair.
can't. Yeah.
That is absolutely fair. Let's jet back into the conversation. And I want us to focus on treatment, right? There are a variety of schools of thought that suggest that there isn't enough research done on the woman's body, to be able to understand what it is she would need in order to combat something like endo, right? For instance, there's a school of thought that suggests that contraceptives are not the best form of assistance, or if you will, treatment to endo, because it leaves her hormones fluctuating. Right, she changes in character and form. Then there's a need and necessity to look at her mental health, because she's transforming, she's becoming a different person. And so, what's your take on that with respect to just research and women's reproductive health? Have we done enough studies to ensure that what it is that we're administering is truly what is best for the woman?
I can say yes, I can say no. Like, for example, with fibroids, there's this school of thought that says that the type of food that we eat is actually what causes fibroids. We don't know how true that is. Like, where people, or some articles say that if people that eat a lot of sugar, if you eat a lot of processed food and all those, you kind of expose yourself to getting fibroids. We don't know. I don't know if Sheila, you remember when we were growing up, the elderly used to say, no, a girl shouldn't eat an egg, or a girl shouldn't eat this,
Yes.
or a girl shouldn't do this. There were certain limits. And when you look at those, they used to help us to, like, well, in a way, we didn't understand why, but in a way, they saved us. And what I wish could have happened is that maybe they could have explained to us that we say a girl shouldn't eat the egg because this is what it's gonna do. We say you shouldn't they do this because it's going to make you be more fertile. We say you shouldn't do this. You only do this. So it's so unfortunate. But looking at where we come from and how these things were not there at the times that we were growing up, the fibroids were not really as common as they are now. Like, Sheila, now you get a child as young as 18 having fibroids. During our times, maybe we used to have those and we didn't know that they were fibroids, but it's so prevalent at this moment. I don't know if it's the food that we eat or what is it, but at this moment in time, it's so prevalent. And yeah, like you saying, I wish there was something open that could be advertised or like broadcasted where people can hear that, okay, to avoid fibroids, avoid food like this, do this, like the home way of dealing with it, instead of waiting later on and coming with the secondary management of things when the disease is actually active, than having prevented it from the beginning. So yeah.
Quite a bit to consider. And I say this because we see women turning to alternative forms of treatment. I know that yoni steaming was a thing at some point. Remember? I think it was, if you think COVID times, all the way through to date, women will take herbs and steam, and some say that they see results and they get rid of their fibrosis or whatever have you. And some say that in actual fact, it took a turn for the worst. You know, you'll hear of women boiling red onion and letting that steam go up their sensitive areas, their intimate areas, and then only to have her state worsened. And so with that being said, for a woman who's trying to gauge her body now, she's saying, Shayla, listen, I hear yoni steaming, and then I hear I must go to a doctor, and then I know that a doctor is going to, for endometriosis, is going to give me this contraceptive that's currently not winning with crowds of people. I mean, there was a comment that came through from an individual just stating that there is a clash. There's a class action lawsuit against Depot contraceptives, and I checked that, specifically Depot Provera lawsuit, and it kind of leaves women thinking, okay, where do I turn to? You know, how do I treat my body? Is it about what I'm eating? Can I trust doctors at this point? So what would you, if you were to caution them, if you were to center them, if you were to give them some peace of mind, where would you start, and what would the conversation be?
You know, Sheila, I've noticed something. These days, there's just a lot of confusion because there's a lot of different sources. People are just Googling everything. Everybody just comes and posts something. There's a lot of influencers. Someone will come and say, hey, I've tried this. It will make this happen. I've tried this. And, you know, it's really sad to stand on information which is not scientifically proven. So I would think that maybe if people want to try such things like steaming and all that, maybe they should check the accredited scientific information that proves that this thing was proved and it was right and these were the findings, than to just hear someone saying, I've tried this and it works, then you run with it, and then only to find that it complicates, you burn yourself, you come up with complications that are worse than what you were trying to treat. So I would say it's better to follow what happens scientifically. I don't know, Sheila, if you remember, there was a point with the Madagascar had this, during COVID, they had this thing of, they said there was a research that if you drink marijuana or something like that, then it helps you against COVID. And I think, I don't know if they ran a research, but according to them, it was preventing this it was preventing them from contracting COVID and all that. Like, they were trying to come up with natural remedies. So the best thing that we can do at this point in time is to stick to what is scientifically proven, to avoid killing ourselves or exposing ourselves to things that we're not sure of. Because everybody is an influencer. You don't know who's coming with reliable information and who isn't.
That is so true. I think, Refilwe, the issue is not finding solid ground. And I can understand the plight of women, where I've gone to my gynae, I've spoken to my gynae, and they misdiagnosed me, right? I went to see 2-3 gynaes, and it's only at the 4th that I was able to find out that I had cysts, or I had fibrosis, and that needed treatment. And the other gynae said, no, this happens during your lady time. It's expected. You're stressed. You know, your cortisol levels are high. You're having too much dairy, which presents signs of endometriosis. It's not a real diagnosis. And so it's just finding that ground and feeling safe in the choice you're making. And I think people are starting to find solace because their peers are saying, hey, this herb works, or that herb works, which we're not necessarily saying is the way to go. But I think I do get the headspace. As a woman myself, I understand why one would try and source out different kinds of treatment forms. Another treatment form that I saw that was very interesting is fasting. Okay. So, Refilwe, people have been told, listen, don't eat for 3 days, drink water. Okay. And your body will begin. Firstly, you step into autophagy. This is where cells begin to, what's the word I'm looking for? They begin to recreate themselves, right? And then after 48 hours of fasting, this happens. And then after 72 hours of fasting, your cells in your body begin to regenerate. And based on this regenerative process, the bad and the toxicity that was once in your body has now left. And now these cells are being reformed. And now your body is going to be in the healthiest form. Is that a way to go, Refilwe? Because it sounds appetizing at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits, and I want to agree with you. I've seen there's a lot of articles on intermittent fasting and all that are going on, of people showing people losing weight when they do that. But you know, Sheila, what I've noticed is that a lot of food that we eat is processed. There's a lot of things that are processed, are speeded up. Like a chicken used to take like a certain time to grow. Now it just grows overnight. And we are consuming such food, and our bodies are so full of toxins. So some studies show that when you fast, you actually get into detox, allow your body to be like cleansed or something like that, serviced, if I can put it like that. Yeah, so yeah, there's just a lot of information. Yeah, but I have heard of fasting being so good. But then the thing with fasting is that it's not for everyone. Certain people are on chronic conditions, like diabetic people. They shouldn't fast until their blood glucose is like, you know, too low. It can actually be life-threatening for such people with people that are immunocompromised. So the certain things are not for everybody. Fasting is not for everyone. It's for specific people that are actually healthy. You know, you don't want to advise on something that will affect people. Like maybe, okay, in terms of fasting, you know, I've heard people saying you can fast Coke, not drink Coke for a month or whatever, or you can fast whatever, you know, something that is toxic for you. You can fast sugar, not eat sugary things for a while. It helps a lot. I've seen it myself as well. I love to fast a lot. And I see the result. It gives me this glow that I don't understand. It does wonders to me. So I also love fasting, and it works for me. But I wouldn't give it as a universal law to say people fast, because some people have conditions that need to be treated with caution.
That is true. The voice of the founder of Refi-Restore Primary Healthcare Services. This is Refilwe Tladiyatsana joining us this evening. It is 10 after 11 p.m. Central African time. We are getting to the tail end of the conversation. Send through your questions, finding us on WhatsApp +27 6340 69126. I want us to take a quick breather. When we get back, we continue the conversation.
Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la double K
or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
The SABC is pleased to announce the launch of its new self-registration platform. Vendors wishing to do business with the SABC can self-register on our internally developed platform. Vendors are able to access this platform on our website, www.sabc.co.za/SABC/ under e-tenders, or self-register at https://etender.sabc.co.za/ and follow the prompts. Visit SABC social media platforms for more details.
From Cape to Cairo, every beat tells a story. It's African Diaries on Channel Africa.
11 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time, we're chatting all things women's reproductive health and looking at the full scope of the conversation. And we're doing this with Refilwe Tladiyatsana, who is a registered nurse and the founder of Refi-Restore Primary Healthcare Services. Refilwe, we were at the point of fasting, and there is a text that came through just to add to what you were saying. There is a text that comes from straight out of 254 stating that fasting makes the body heal itself from the inside out. That's a comment coming through from TikTok. And just to gauge, is that your experience as well with fasting?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is. You know, fasting is very, like, you glow. People can actually notice that there's something about you. You glow. You are detoxing. It's like you're detoxing, yeah. So you glow. Some people who used to have pimples, some people, I'm not saying people who've got pimples fast, no. But it seems to clear their skin. Their skin becomes so clear. I've seen that with me, it does wonders.
Yes, ma'am, and we can see you're glowing as well. So yes, we see it. Let's continue the conversation and look at treatment options. We spoke about alternatives, the herbs that people are taking. We've looked at food, right? I want us to have this twofold understanding. Let's talk about food. You spoke heavily about the limitations of processed food. What are we eating? The greens from the earth, which some people don't trust because these are greens that also have a process that doesn't make sense. You know, how is an apple living in my cupboard or in my pantry for 4 weeks straight without molding? You know, there's a bit of doubt there and there. But for those who are looking to clean up their diet, what would you suggest they have?
You know, Sheila, I would suggest maybe planting your own vegetables. Like, some people have that little space that they can always use to plant your own vegetables that will grow naturally at a natural rate without being influenced by anything else. And there's a lot of methods that are broadcasted everywhere, like if you've got limited space, on how you can actually grow your own vegetables at home. So vegetables, grains, and drinking a lot of water, replacing, you know, a lot of people are eating, like, they're drinking a lot of coffee, which is high in caffeine. They are drinking a lot of energy drinks. These things are, in a way, straining the body, because if your body is tired, you need to listen to it and rest. You need to sleep. So there's a lot of things that are involved here. Rest, adequate rest is very important. Proper food like vegetables that you can also plant in your own house. Not only will it benefit you to eat things that are naturally grown in your own backyard, but it will also save you financially. You know, every moment that you can get to save something is always welcomed, yeah. So there's ways that you can actually grow your own vegetables at home.
And let's talk about treatment options that are availed to individuals. I think something that Tshepiso Magwetla of Africa World Hour raised is the context of finances. Sometimes my pockets don't stretch as deep. Sometimes I don't have access to that funding that would allow me to get the service range needed. Are there alternatives when it comes to the healthcare system?
Yeah, in government, the basics are always covered in clinics. So it's just a problem of like some people would complain of like the long queues, irritable staff and all that. But if you really, really understand how important it is for you to get the treatment, if you don't have money, always go to the government institution. They always have the basics of everything that we need. STI treatments are always there. Like, Sheila, I love how the government institution are always looking into the pregnant woman, the pregnancy, the way it's dealt with in government. Okay, it's not fancy like in private where you get to be the only patient there. There's just a lot of you, but the information, the things that are done for you to like even early detection of abnormalities, high risks are categorized to say, okay, you are a high risk because you have a chronic infection. A chronic condition. You are a high risk because you are advanced maternal age. The specific treatment that is given to you, you are taken to a tertiary institution where you can actually be seen by people that are more experienced to deal with any complication that may arise. So for those that don't have means financially, there's always government institutions. Sheila, there's a principle that I like to go by, that you can't have your bread and eat it, or what. There's something like that. You can't have your butter on both sides.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But you get what I mean? Like, you can't expect that everything goes the way you want. You want the comfort of private when you don't have the finances. You need to sacrifice somehow for your own health. And it's just for a while. And after that, you'll be back to your normal self, So the government institutions, I know there's limitations. I know there's somewhere there's resources that are limited. But with other things like contraceptives, with treatment for STIs, which these are the things that we consider urgent, like treatment for STI, that's urgent. Starting treatment for HIV, that's urgent. Doing pap smears, regular checkups, that's considered urgent. It's not something that you could say, no, I don't have money, I can't go. We need to go back to that generation that actually wants to do things and run after them, than that generation that expects things to be brought to us. The free electricity, free water generation. No, we don't want to be that. Yeah, we need to be that generation that knows like how to sacrifice. Like, yes, the queues, you have to wait for too long sometimes, but if you cannot afford it, then do it. Go and queue just for that day, and you get your treatment, and then you come back home. You saved yourself, you saved the generation that comes after you, because your fertility or your ability to give birth will not be compromised because you did not want to go to a clinic for a treatment of STI. So certain things, like, let's really be willing to also do our part.
And then lastly, let's talk about the role of men. In actual fact, dare I say, the importance of us both noting what happens with the next cycle, right? And I'm saying this because it almost feels like we are so spaced out. There is a gap, there's a divide between our understanding of reproductive health for men versus men's understanding of reproductive health for women. What's the importance of that integration in terms of education, knowledge, and understanding?
It's very, very important. It's extremely important because, like, with men, they can also form part of sterilization in a sense that some women have to go through contraceptives, in a sense like they have to take hormonal, like you were explaining earlier, that some people would say that like this hormonal treatment is making me feel like that there's an imbalance and whatever. With men, there's vasectomy, where they just tie the vas deferens, and it's a lifetime contraceptive. Well, the thing is that it's irreversible. Once it's done, it cannot be reversed. but they can also play a role in that sense that, okay, my wife has problems with these contraceptives. They are always making her like feel hungry all the time. She's gaining a lot of weight. She's getting pimples. Maybe let me rather go for, we know that we don't want to be pregnant anymore. Let me rather go for vasectomy. Well, it's only possible in setups where the couple is married, but in a situation where they are not married and there's condoms can be used. With condoms, there's no hormonal imbalances that takes place because one of you is taking contraceptives. So men can play a role in acknowledging that the wearing of condoms is both their responsibility. There's no such a thing as, no, it's nicer without a condom. There's a lot of consequences and risks that comes with unprotected sex. So men can play a role in that. In that, yeah. Let me leave it at that. Yeah.
Refilwe, this has been a pleasure. I feel like we need a part 2, 3, and 4, and 5 because there's quite a bit to unpack when it comes to reproductive health. But for this evening, we thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your presence and keep on doing the stellar work that you're doing at Refi-Restore Primary Healthcare Services.